about a week ago, Steph Curry, and he said this several times, Steph Curry, after a Warriors loss, sounding very frustrated with his team. Take a listen.
We got to play better. We have to develop a winning attitude every single night. And honestly, we got to get sick of, just getting blown out, because that's embarrassing. I think we have to have some pride about how we're playing. You can lose games. That's going to happen, but not like that.
Sometimes, Brian, you hear a player sort of start to begin that process of, I need to get out of here. I'm not about this. Do you get that sense from Steph Curry?
Not really. I mean, I definitely think he's frustrated about this season. They had higher hopes, and then Clay's injury derailed them, and he's been banged up a couple of times. And the Warriors really thought they were going to leap right back into it. They took it on the chin last year. Okay, they got their draft pick. Now they were going to come back into it, and it hasn't worked out. And I think, there's been a couple of games this year where they've been embarrassed and blown off the court, and he's gotten frustrated. But, I don't think that he's in that mindset. But the reality is he has a contract extension decision this summer. I'm sure the Warriors will offer him an extension, whether it's the full max, which could be 4 years and around $200 million, or it's something else. We'll see how that goes. And at that time, he'll either sign it and commit himself to being a Warrior basically for life, because it will be a deal that would take him to age 37 or 38, or he won't, and then we'll have a five-alarm fire. But I think that it's not time for the five-alarm fire yet. I think he's probably committed. I just think he's frustrated.
Wendy, when you look at the situation, it seems like the rest of the league has caught up to the style in which Golden State created, right? Look at the way Utah's playing, a lot of threes, Phoenix playing the same way, Brooklyn Nets faster, Milwaukee, faster. Do you think that ultimately at the end of the day, how will Klay Thompson come back? And will that affect the decision of a guy like Steph Curry?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if he'll have the answer to that. It's such a serious injury, the Achilles, for a guy of that age. The thing is, the Warriors have experienced an incredible talent drain. The amount of talent that they had was extraordinary, for sure. They're falling from a very high height. But when you lose an MVP in Kevin Durant, and then you have 2 seasons without a guy who's going to probably be a Hall of Famer in Klay Thompson, and then, the bottom end of the roster went from veteran guys like David West and Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala. Those were their sort of reserves, to guys in their first and second seasons. That's a massive talent switch. I mean, no offense to Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins, but they're not Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant. And no offense to Juan Pastano-Anderson or Eric Paschall or James Wiseman, but they are not at their careers yet, like Iguodala, Livingston, and David West. And so that talent drain is just unrecoverable. I mean, why did the Rockets lose 20 in a row? Because they lost their coach, their GM, and their best player. And 2 years lost of losing another Hall of Famer in Chris Paul. So it's really not surprising that they are where they are. The question is, can they build up, and how does it work with Klay on that contract and potentially Steph on that contract and Draymond on that contract? That means they're going to have to do it without salary cap space, which is why I believe the best thing for the Warriors is to miss the playoffs this year and try to get into this.
And he's saying LeBron has started recruiting him at the All-Star game. As you saw, you remember they were teammates, and there was a lot of fawning between the two and social media posts and everything else.
First
about
time
the two
LeBron
of them
ever played with
being
Steph
teammates.
Curry.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it was an All-Star game. But still, what Windy had to say was kind of interesting. Take a listen here.
Steph is also eligible for an extension this summer. I guess he would sign it, right? I mean, I guess the Warriors are offering a big extension and he'd sign it, even though he just turned 33. I thought it was hilarious over All-Star weekend, LeBron praising Steph up and down, the one side and down the other, how much he loves his game, how much he respects him. I mean, LeBron has obviously put the full court press on, not the full court press, but LeBron has also obviously begun recruiting of Steph just in the event that he wouldn't extend.
Sliding into the DMs is what basically Wendy's trying to say there. Now, is it that crazy to think that Steph Curry would think that it's time to leave Golden State? Maybe say, you know what? maybe my time here is done. People think, oh, he's going to retire with the Warriors. But have you seen him this season, guys? Have you noticed him this season with the young group around him and his level of frustration, especially without Klay Thompson there, seems to be growing game after game. This is after a recent game where he was frustrated once again with some of the young guys and how they were not performing well, weren't ready to play in another loss. And his tone and what he talked about kind of suggests a guy that maybe he's ready to move on. Take a listen.
We got to play better. We have to develop a winning attitude every single night. And honestly, we got to get sick of, just getting blown out because that's embarrassing. I think we have to have some pride about how we're playing. You can lose games. That's going to happen, but not like that.
So when you go through a rebuild, it's not fun when you're not the young guy anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Curry went through this as the young guy years ago, but now he's the vet with rings on his fingers, and he's looking around him thinking, I can't win with these dudes. That's literally what you're hearing. So maybe there's something to it. Then again, maybe not. 30 seconds after Windy said what he said on the Hoop Collective podcast, Nick Friedel, who covers the Warriors, said this.
He's going to sign, whether he signs. I actually had this argument with our boy Timmy B the other day, guys. Timmy B is like, he may not sign. He may not sign. Come on, look at that team. There's no way that Steph, who has only ever said he wants to stay with the Warriors his whole career, and who has only ever said, I can't wait to play with Klay again, it's going to be great, and Draymond's still rolling through either the end of his prime or towards that other stage at a different point in his career, that Steph is suddenly going to walk away. Steph is going to sign that big money extension at some point.
So never mind.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think both things can be true. I think Steph Curry can sign the extension this summer, but I think there's also the possibility that we see Steph Curry finish his career in a different uniform. When that happens, I don't know. But as far as the situation with the Golden State Warriors, I can understand his frustration. They've been doing a lot of losing the last couple of years, right? Now, you would attribute a lot of that to injuries, but as this core continues to age, I don't know how they get that part drastically turned around and in the right direction to the point where they're competing for championships, especially in the Western Conference. So I don't think it's crazy to think that Steph Curry could potentially be on the move at some point in the next couple of years.
I don't think it's crazy at all. And I'll say this. I want Steph Curry to do whatever Steph Curry feels like he needs to do for his legacy.
He's earned that.
Like he's earned that. Like I don't care if that's at Golden State. I don't care if that people want him to go back home to Charlotte where he was, he raised and spent time there and played for Jordan. I don't care if that's with the Lakers. This is a new dimension that we're seeing in the NBA. If star players want to go team up with other star players, I would love to see LeBron James and Stephen Curry on the same team together. I would love to see it. You know why? Because it will make LeBron more of a villain. It would make Steph more of a villain. And if they would win more championships, then so be it. I'm not one of these old guys, even though we had an old guy segment this morning about Gonzaga basketball, right? That says, you have to stay with your team and win it for your city, and that's where you started your career. Look, man, you have the dynamic to change where you have a chance to play. And that's power. So if he felt like he has more power and more opportunity to win championships in LA, then so be it with LeBron. Because honestly, I hope Klay comes back, and I hope Klay Thompson is the player he was before he's gotten hurt. But he's gotten hurt twice now. He's gotten hurt twice now. And you have a 2-year layoff from basketball. It's hard to come back and be the same player you were before. I hope he can do it. But if you're Steph, you're looking at the future earnings of this, and you're like, I have money. Yeah, the money sounds great. I have money. Can I win more, though, if that's important to him? Maybe.
I'm done.
Do they get a deal done?
If they offer him the max key, which is a $215 million extension for 4 years, I don't see why he wouldn't commit. He's beloved there. He's had great success there, and I'm sure he believes in the franchise. The franchise is extremely well capitalized. They just sold off 5% of the team for $300 million. I mean, and even though they've struggled like everybody with the pandemic, they've got a ton of money. The question is, are they going to offer him that max contract? In the past, the Warriors have been shrewd negotiators. They got Kevin Durant to take a couple of years of less than max contracts. They got Andre Iguodala to maneuver his contract around. So do they come to him and try to appeal to him
and say, hey, can you take a little less than the max so we can build this team over the next 4 years? But the real challenge in Golden State, and if I'm Steph Curry, this is what I want to know, maybe even beyond the money. They have James Wiseman, the number 2 pick in this year's draft, a prospect, a raw prospect. They're going to have 2 lottery picks in this draft. If Minnesota slides out of the top 3, they get that pick, and they have their own. Maybe Minnesota is in the top 3, and then it's an unprotected pick next year. Either way, it's a very valuable trade chip. If I was Steph Curry, I would say, what is our direction? Are we going to take these young draft picks and you're going to draft guys and I'm going to have 3, 19 or 20-year-olds on this roster trying to win? Or are we going to trade those pieces for bona fide players that when Klay Thompson comes back and Draymond Green is still in the back end of his prime, do we make one more push with this? That, to me, is as big of a decision organizationally as getting Steph to sign it on the line.
Wendy, in 12 years, he's made $200 million with the Warriors. Would his max be a $200 million max?
Yeah, he can add 4 years and 215.
Think
So
about
he he would double his career earnings. And
Isn't that amazing?
his value to the franchise is unquestioned. I mean, he is the guy they're coming through the doors to see. But it's not even just about the money. I mean, obviously they got to offer it to him. But if he doesn't hear what he likes about the way they've got the back end of his career planned, he may not sign it to see how it plays out.
Brian, let's talk about somebody who has value to an organization. That's Brad Stevens with the Boston Celtics. How important are these playoffs to his career in Boston?
Well, the Celtics this has been a bit of a lost year for them. I don't know how this series with the Nets will ultimately play out. Game 1 was competitive, but they're not going to win that series. The Celtics have some major decisions to make, and I've said this before. I think that across the board, the Celtics have not had a good 12 or so months. I think some of their ownership decisions have been hurtful. I think some of their front office decisions have been hurtful. I think some of the Brad Stevens coaching has not been his best, which he has admitted. And I think some of their players haven't delivered at the level that they expected them to deliver, whether it was due through injury or through other circumstances. So there's going to be a lot that's going to have to be manipulated on the Celtics. The thing I would say, though, is they have 2 star perimeter players in their early 20s under long-term contract. That is the tough thing to get. That is what everybody who was on the outside of the title contention window is trying to get. So in a lot of ways, the hard part is done for them. I don't know if there's anything Brad can do in the short term here, but obviously their game plan and their roster moves coming into next year have got to be a step above where they were this year.
Yeah, there's no doubt it's not acceptable. The standard's much different there in Boston. And Brian